Okay, welcome back to the Mental Toughness Podcast.org. Remember to subscribe at mentaltoughnesspodcast.org. I'm Steve Siebold, your host, and today I want to talk about the power of consistency in performance. This is one of the things that's overlooked by a lot of amateur performers in business and sports. And, one of the things that years ago, I started working with top professional athletes, Olympic athletes, sports teams like the Boston Celtics, the Florida Marlins, Ohio State Buckeyes. The press would ask me all the time, they'd say, what do you tell these people? What is it that you say? And, how do you coach athletes that are at such a high level from a psychological perspective? And I remember one time in specific, I was working with the team that was coaching Andre Agassi, the great tennis player, back when he was one of the top players in the world. This is back 30 years ago. And the press said, what is it that you say to a player like Andre Agassi? And I jokingly replied, not much. But it was more of a joke just to kind of crack the press up a little bit because they were kind of all over him at that point. And it was sort of a joke just to have a little comic relief. But the truth is that's actually pretty accurate. You don't say much, but what you say needs to be laser focused to what they need to hear. So you don't tell them a lot of things because they're already great. They're already great mentally too. Of course, they're already mentally tough. They're the best athletes in the world. You have to be mentally tough even to get close to an athlete like that, to a level of athlete like that. Same with entrepreneurs. If you're succeeding, if you're a 7-figure entrepreneur, you're already mentally tough. Okay. If you're a 6-figure entrepreneur, you're probably pretty mentally tough. Now, can you get better? Of course. Right? Everyone can get better. And that's the purpose of a podcast like this. It's the reason people hire sports psychologists and other performance experts. That's why, companies have hired me for 30 years to go in, or 25 years, to go into sales teams and do turnarounds, to take low-performing sales teams and turn them into at least mid-level performing sales teams, sometimes higher, but at least to get them to the middle level, to the upper middle third, as corporate America likes to call it, and in terms of market share and sales. And that's why they do it, because people are tough, but they need to be tougher in a lot of ways. And the more mentally tough you get, the better, the higher level you are in terms of critical thinking, the more successful you're going to be. And consistency is one of those things that really determines, it's one of the key criteria, things that really determine the difference between a good performer and a great performer, is consistency in performance. In other words, they are consistently great at what they do. And that's where it ends. Where it starts, where it really begins, is they're consistent in their preparation. For example, how many hours a day they practice, okay? Is it 3 hours a day? Is it 4 hours a day? Is it, what is it? What's the number? How many miles do they run in a day? How much weight training do they do in a day? What kind of foods do they eat? Okay, and I could just go down a laundry list of things with athletes that, as a performance coach, you're looking to shore up every area that impacts their performance. And the ones that are consistent in their preparation are the ones that are consistent in their performance and at the end of the day in their results. And so that's one of the things that baffles a lot of people. And it baffled me for a long time too as a tennis player, because anyone that reaches, let's say in professional tennis, anyone reaches about the top 500 players in the world, which is where I was on the bottom end of that level when I was playing, on any day is capable of beating the person that's number one in the world on any given day. If they're playing right, if they're playing the best they can play, and the number one player in the world is playing at the worst, that number 500 player is going to beat them on one day. Now, would they beat them out of 10 times? How many times would they beat them? Maybe once. And they would lose 9 other times. Okay, if you're old enough to remember, or if you're not old enough, you may have seen the movie Miracle on Ice. But you may have seen the movie. It was a great movie with Kurt Russell. But it was based on the 1980 Olympic team when the U.S. hockey team beat the Russian team and then beat in the semis and then beat Finland in the finals. That's what the coach said. They said 9 out of 10 times, he told them in the locker room, these guys are the best hockey players in the world, the Russian team, and they're going to beat you. but not today. And that's all they needed to win the to be in the finals, to beat Finland, to win the gold medal in the Olympics. And they called it the Miracle on Ice because there was no way that ragtag group of college hockey players that they threw together in a few months could beat a Russian team that was beating the New York Rangers. I mean, literally the best pro hockey players in America. They just had beaten the New York Rangers. And now they throw this college group together. They've never played together before, and they put them together. But there were a lot of things that were going on there, which would be the topic of another show, which I won't go into. But at the end of the day, it comes down to consistency and preparation, because when you're consistently preparing and you're doing the things you need to do to be great, well, then you're going to be consistently great, or consistent at the highest level of your ability to perform. Like in tennis, I would be consistent at a certain level, but I would never call it great. Because I was never great. Not even the best day of my life was I great compared to the best players in the world. Compared to the average person, yeah, sure, I was great. Well, the average person's not very good in tennis, but the top players are. So the top players always compare themselves, the top performers, let's say in general, always compare themselves to the best in the world. The average performers tend to compare themselves to the average person. It's one of the key differences in thinking between top performers and mid-level performers. They compare themselves, the top performers always compare themselves to the best. And so compared to the best, like when I played Bjorn Borg, okay, back in the day, I did an exhibition with Bjorn Borg. I told this in speeches all over the world for 20 years. Before I played Bjorn Borg, if you saw me walking down the street and you came up to me and said, "Are you a great tennis player?" I was a young kid. I might have said yes. I probably wouldn't because my parents told me not to brag. But in my mind, I was a great tennis player because I compared myself to the average tennis player. Compared to, whom I was great. No question. And then I played Bjorn Borg. Now, after I played Bjorn Borg, if you would have come to me on the street and asked me, "Are you a great tennis player?" I'd have told you that I am not anywhere near a great tennis player, but Bjorn Borg is a great tennis player, because I was blown away with his greatness. I couldn't believe it. I'd seen him on TV. I watched him win 5 Wimbledon titles on television. I watched him win 7 French Opens in Paris on television. But I'm telling you, if you've ever had the experience of standing 80 feet away on a tennis court from the greatest player at that time that ever held a tennis racket, and you got the press there, and you got fans there, and you've got to actually, go into a battle with that guy, that is an unusually unique experience. And it wakes you up really quickly, because watching them on TV is not quite the same as competing against them. It's just unique. You realize how great they were. It was the difference really when I heard about Andre Agassi back in the day, and heard how great he was, and then I played him. To this day, I can't tell you, that was even more profound an experience than playing Bjorn Borg. I don't even know how to explain it. He was doing things with a tennis racket I was playing him that I've never seen anyone do before or since. That guy was a freak of nature. He really was. So that's the thing. And so to wrap this up in a bow, basically what I'm saying is everything you're going to do, whether you're in business, you're an athlete, whatever it is that you're a coach, it makes no difference. If you're consistent in your preparation and the key things you need to do to prepare, it will directly impact your performance in business, in sports, in your relationships, if you're a parent, whatever it is. It makes no difference because it's all psychological, right? When you go in as a mental toughness coach or a sports psychologist or a peak performance coach of any kind, you go in and you look at what they do in patterns. Okay, you look for patterns on a team. You look for patterns in an athlete. If you're coaching a sales team like I've done for so many years in corporate America, you look at their numbers. You don't just look at their sales numbers or their market share. What you look at are their prospecting numbers, their sales appointment numbers, their closing ratio. You're looking at metrics because numbers never lie. And what I'm looking for and I'll give you one of the secrets of turning low-performing teams into mid-performing teams. What you're looking for is consistency in the basic numbers. Okay, like for example, and I'll give you one. This is one of the great secrets we use because when you go in and turn a team around, like we have for so many years, we get hired by a turnaround specialist at a company like Johnson & Johnson, which we did for many years, and all kinds of different companies, big companies. And they call you up and say, okay, we got to turn this team around. We have 12 to 18 months to do it. We've got to go from $550 million to $625 million. So we got a net increase of $75 million in sales. And so here's the time we have to do it. If we do it in 12 months, we get a bonus. If we do it in 18 months, we get a smaller bonus. If we don't do it at all, we get fired. So what information do you need from me? This is the sales vice president to help us do this. And I said, what I said for years was I want every single number you have. Every metric you have, I want to know. I want to know how many appointments they're making, the salespeople are making. I want all their ratios, okay? And so the key number, I'll tell you the key thing that we used. And, the vice presidents of sales never used it, or as far as I know, not the ones we worked with. I want to know how many calls they're making per day. And what we found was in the pharmaceutical world anyway, they were making 6 calls per day, and the company recommended based on the metrics that they make 8. As soon as we got them from 6 to 8, the numbers went through the roof. That's the first way to turn around a team. Get them increasing their numbers of people that they're on a sales team they're talking to face to face. Okay, now if you're a big company that has a huge impact within 90 days, all right, that's the low hanging fruit of being a turnaround specialist. Okay, in terms of psychological performance, because of a bunch of reasons I won't even go into. So let's take it down to the entrepreneur level. In terms of key metrics. If you say, well, I want to make more money in my business, I would say, how many people face-to-face on Zoom, let's say, or face-to-face in person or on the phone are you talking to on a daily basis? And then I want to know on a weekly basis and a monthly basis, okay? Is it consistent? Okay, back to consistency. Is it consistent? Do you talk to 2 people, 10 people, 8 people, 4 people? That's not what you want to do for a lot of reasons, okay? Not the least of which is the emotional momentum that you gain when you're consistently doing the same numbers, okay? So what I recommend is if you say, okay, well, if I made 10 calls a day or I was in front of 10 prospects a day, well, that would be, you decide through, some kind of, research through metrics or through your mentor or your coaching program or whatever, that's enough, then that's the optimal number and you can make it work. Then that's the number you hit every single day, 10 every single day. You don't do 10 and then 5 and then 6 and then 7, okay? If you do that in a company during a turnaround, you get fired. It doesn't take you very long. Okay, we used to fire people almost every week, because you had to. Because we know that if they don't do that most basic thing, it won't work anyway. So they're going to end up getting fired anyway. You might as well cut them loose now. And that's what we did. We ended up firing thousands of people along with the turnaround specialists because they wouldn't be consistent in their numbers and it won't work. It's the best thing you can do for them anyway in the company because it won't work. So what you're looking for are consistent things. Like as an entrepreneur, you want consistent prospecting numbers. How many prospecting calls are you making per day? It's a key metric. It's a basic metric. Okay, low-hanging fruit. Then out of those calls per week, per month, per day, per week, per month, how many of those are closing and turning into business? There's another key metric. Okay, how much spin-off business are you getting from the close dates? That's another metric. Okay, I can just go down the list. There's a whole bunch of things. But the bottom line is once you get consistent metrics, consistent preparation, you'll see your growth become consistent. I know it can sound a little esoteric, but it's actually very linear. You prepare in a consistent manner. Okay, so let's just break it down again. 10. Let's say the number is whatever you say the number is, that because you know your business better than I do, obviously. But let's just say it's 10 calls a day. Then I want to make 10 calls a day, and I make the 10 calls every single day, and I never miss, no matter what. Okay. I just don't miss that. Now I've got a psychological, emotional momentum going that I know when I come in the office, I'm making those 10 calls or 50 calls or 100 calls, whatever the number is. But I'm gonna decide on that number and I'm gonna make them consistently every day. And then you look at the other key metrics and you keep going down your list of key metrics. It's different for every business. Okay. Obviously, selling and prospecting are two of the most important if you're in any business. But businesses and companies that are beyond, they're so busy that they're managing more business than they are looking for new business, then that would be another set of metrics that you need to determine. But whatever the metrics are, consistent preparation and consistent numbers in preparation will eventually result in consistent performance, low or high or in the middle. But your preparation will determine your results and your performance level. And that's one of the key things. I mean, literally, I just told you something that that the Boston Celtics didn't know. Okay, because why would they bring me in? Why would a team at a high level like that, or some of the biggest companies in the world, have to bring me in and pay me a ridiculous amount of money to help them turn things around? Because they don't know this. Because this is not their forte. This is not what they do. They create products and they train sales teams in basic salesmanship and managers, and they try to raise people up and promote people within the organization. They've got a lot of duties to do. This is all I do. That's all I did for 23 years. Okay, so like anything you do for 23 years at a world-class level, at $1 million level, you get pretty good at it. But at the end of the day, it isn't that complicated. It's really just a matter of understanding the metrics and then sticking to the metrics and then watching things happen. And the cool thing about it is when you do this, it's not something that transforms a company or a business, large or small, in 30, 40 days, 50 days in a row. Okay. But 3 months, 6 months down the road, you will absolutely see results if you stick to those consistent, preparing in a consistent way. You'll begin to see those results. We usually had 12 to 18 months to do turnarounds, and we would start to see the results month 9, 10, 11, real close to 12 months. And sometimes it took us all 18. We never actually missed one, but some of them were real close. We got real close, like month 17 and a half. I'm like, oh my God, we got $50 million to go. But eventually they turned over, and we were able. That's why we were so successful, because we kept winning. I mean, we kept making it happen. But these are some of the things there are other things, but these are some of the key things that make it work. So consider these things in your business or in your sport. You can apply it to anything. You can apply it in your relationship. If you're a parent, I was never a parent, but I have a lot of friends that have kids like everybody else, and they say, well, if I wish my parents would have read to me more. I think if they would have read to me more when I was a kid, I think I'd be more into reading. I think I'd be more into studying. I wish my parents talked to me about social things, what's going on in politics, what's going on in the social area of life. I wish my parents would have talked to me more about interpersonal relationships, how to relate to people. I wish my parents would have told me something about sex. Maybe give me a heads up so I don't have to figure it out, on the street when I'm in, whatever grade, or talk to me more about things about money. Teach me how money works, the basics of how money works, so which you can teach a 12-year-old kid. Whatever those things are, look at, and you say, that would be a great parent, wouldn't it, if they taught you all those things they never teach most of us? Wouldn't that be a great parent? Okay, you decide that's the most important thing in the world to you. I have friends that say, it's the most important job in the world is being a parent. Okay, you want to be a world-class parent? Look at your preparation. Look at your number. How many times a week if you decide what it takes to be a great parent, okay? Read 3 books on the topic. There's plenty of them out there, and they're pretty good from what I understand. And they say, well, if you do this, you do this, you do this. And they'll say there's 10 different things to prepare a child to go out into the world to become very successful that most parents don't do for whatever reason. You take those 10 things and you say, 3 times a week, I'm going to read to them. And 3 times a week, we're going to discuss politics. And 3 times a week, we're going to discuss interpersonal relationships, whatever, or academics, whatever you decide are the important things. You do that for 10 years, you got a kid that comes out that's prepared for the world. Now you've got a world-class, a person that's trained, that's prepared with a world-class parent behind them. Can you imagine having that? It'd be unbelievable. I don't know if anyone's ever had it, but it'd be unbelievable if they did. That's how you turn around the raising of a child, you might say. The way you turn around a low-performing team or a mid-level performing sales team or business team or an entrepreneurial venture. It's all the same, but it's consistency in the preparation that creates the result. And that's the bottom line. Okay, I threw a lot at you. Hopefully you digested some of this and you can use it. So with that, and remember to subscribe to the podcast so we can send you the email. This podcast comes out every week. And subscribe at mentaltoughness.org. Mental Toughness, we couldn't get .com. mentaltoughnnesspodcast.org. And it's all free, of course. And we'll send you the link to the podcast every week. And with that, have a great week. Thanks for listening and watching.